story every time I wake up. I'm in the action, chips on the table. I want the feel good, I need another percentage. I want the win, lucky 7 every time I walk in. You know, every time I walk in, I'm the best thing, I'm the best thing. They all watching every time we walk in. We the best thing, we the best thing.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Chelsea Mann. I'm a field education trainer for Wella Professional here in what today is, I think, sunny but cold northern Alberta. I want to say thank you to Modern Beauty Supply for having me today and always welcoming the Wella family with open arms. And thank you guys again for joining us. Today I'm going to talk about probably anybody who's met me before, anybody who's been in one of my classes before knows this. This is probably my favorite Wella thing to talk about and my favorite thing that we make. Today we're going to talk about Illumina. This is going to be a really, really easygoing sort of back and forth class, guys. It's just me today, no co-host or anything today. But I'm just going to talk about Illumina. I'm going to answer your questions. So feel free, guys, at the bottom of your screen there's a question, a little sort of thought bubble with a question mark in it. Feel free to throw your questions into there. It's a little bit difficult for me to keep up with them in the comments. But if you want to throw them into the comments, I will do my best. But go ahead and check them up on the question cards and I'll answer your questions as we go here. So short and sweet, guys. Again, thank you for joining us and thank you for Modern Beauty Supplies for having us. So let's talk about Illumina. Like I said before, Illumina is arguably my favorite thing that we make at Wella. Illumina, was released years ago when I worked at a salon in Ontario, and I remember when it came out, it was something that was very sort of mysterious, and we kind of had a lot of questions about it at first, and I found that there was a little bit of anxiety about trying it, and as an educator now, I run into that in the field a little bit where, I start to talk to people about it, and I get really excited because I love Illumina, and I've said that like 8 times already. And then people are like, well, I don't really understand where I would use it. And I find, some colorists are a little bit afraid sometimes to step outside of what they sort of normally do in the products that they're used to using, simply because, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have time to do something twice and only get paid once, right? So all of that to say, I had some fear around Illumina when it first came out as well. I totally feel you guys on that, but Illumina, I will tell you guys right now, Illumina is such a beautiful product. It's such a beautiful color. It's an easy color to use on your clients. It's an easy thing to understand. So if you guys can give me like 20 minutes to get you guys going on this, I'm telling you, Illumina has been a game changer in my career as a colorist. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it today. So let's get into it. So Illumina, guys, is these tubes right here. So if you're a Wella user, you've probably seen these tubes, okay? There are beautiful sort of mauve, silvery, purpley tubes, okay? Illumina, first and foremost, guys, this is the biggest question I get about Illumina color is where does it fit in the portfolio? So Wella Professionals is a big portfolio and we get that, we know it. There's no holes in it anywhere, which is kind of nice, right? But where does it fit? Is it a demi? Is it a semi? Is it a permanent? Whatever. So it comes in a tube like this. I'll open this one up for you guys. This is one of our new shades I'm going to show you guys today. It comes in a tube like this. Looks just like a tube of permanent or demi, right? So by definition, guys, Illumina color is permanent, okay? So I'll put that one right out front. Illumina color is permanent color. Now, this also opens up a conversation about what is permanent color? What does that mean, right? So I'm going to clear a little bit of that up right now as well, because I think that it's important. And again, guys, feel free to throw your questions into the comments or the question cards. Illumina color, permanent color, guys, by definition, is color that makes a permanent change to the hair, an unchangeable change, meaning that permanent color goes into the cortex cells of the hair where your natural melanin is produced, into your melanocytes. Your permanent color, any permanent color, not just Wella, anything that's classed as a permanent is going to travel into those cortex cells and make a permanent change to the hair, meaning that it's going to, have the ability to have your exposure of underlying pigment, and it's going to, and I know we hear underlying pigment, we're like, ooh, not today, Satan. But really, underlying pigment, guys, is something that we need as hairstylists. It's the way that it's something that your color uses to create its target shade, right? So by definition, permanent color makes a permanent change to the hair. Okay, so it's going to go into those cortex cells, it's going to expose underlying pigment, it's going to use that underlying pigment to create its target shade. Okay, so same way that we see with our Colistin Perfect permanent colors when we're covering gray, or we're using permanent color for whatever permanent color we want to use it for. Okay, those colors will do that same job, right? So I wanted to clear that up. Now, where it becomes messy, I think, with types of color is when you get into semis and things like that. This isn't what this live is about today, guys, but I really just want to make the point that developer plays a big role in this. As soon as you introduce developer into the equation, you're talking about an oxidative process, things like that. So that's sort of the difference between your semis and your demis and your permanents. But for our purposes today, Illumina color is a permanent color. Now, the next question I get after that, when I explain that to people and they sort of get that, is what makes it different than if it's permanent, why isn't it just in the Colistin Perfect portfolio? And this is a great question, right? Because our Colistin Perfect portfolio is our permanent range, right? And again, permanent meaning makes a permanent change to the hair, okay? So what makes it different than our Colistin Perfect range? And this is such a great question. I'm going to do a demo on this in a little bit. But I think the biggest defining sort of characteristic between Colistin Perfect and Illumina is kind of twofold. The first arm of it is its ability to be different than the opaque finish of Colistin Perfect, right? So our Colistin Perfect, or our classic permanent line, is going to be opaque in nature, okay? So from a scientific perspective, guys, opaque meaning no light passes through, okay? So the wall behind me, you guys can't see my yard. Like, I'm in my studio right now. You guys can't see my yard through the wall back there. Like, if I move, there's a window there. But you guys can't see my yard because that wall is opaque. No light passes through, right? There's nobody, none of you can see through that wall. And if you can, I want you to DM me because I would like to pick your brain about it. But that's because that wall is opaque. No light passes through, right? So that's what Colistin Perfect is. Colistin Perfect color is opaque, meaning it will create color in the hair that creates a finish that is sort of consistent. And, the Colistin Perfect finish is very sort of modern and believable, but it's still opaque, meaning that, it has a shininess to it that is sort of built into the color, but we're not allowing light to sort of pass through and bounce around and come back out. It's shiny because we create it that way, right? Illumina, by contrast, is translucent. Okay, so translucent from a science perspective, meaning that some of the light passes through. Okay, so the wall behind me, opaque, none of the light passes through. This window here is transparent. Okay, like every other regular window, meaning that all the light passes through. If I walked you over to that window, you'd be able to see my yard outside, right? Now, if that window was frosted glass, right? Like you guys know, I don't know how to explain frosted glass, but I assume everybody's seen it. If that window was frosted glass, you could see maybe that there's a trampoline in my backyard, but you wouldn't be able to make out the finer points of it or things like that, right? Because only some of the light passes through when things are translucent, right? So that's one of the differences between Colistin Perfect and Illumina is that Colistin Perfect is going to be opaque. Like the wall, every strand of hair on the head, the same color when used properly, okay? Illumina is translucent, meaning that when you use Illumina color, it allows some of the light in, the light bounces around and reflects back out a clear cuticle, okay? Meaning that it's naturally light reflective. We don't really talk about shine in an artificial way in Illumina. It is naturally light reflective, okay? And that's probably, I'm going to tell you the second difference in a minute, but that's probably, I think, one of the biggest things about Illumina that makes it so cool. And cool being like, I don't mean it in a hairdresser way. I mean it in the like awesome way. That's one of the coolest things about Illumina is that it just has that really beautiful natural looking finish, that allows it to look really, really believable. I found when we re-released Colistin Perfect that the finish on Colistin Perfect was was modernized as well and making it a little bit less inky and more believable. But Illumina is really, really sort of a natural looking sort of base, right? I really, really dig it for that reason. I have a lot of natural gray in my own hair. This is all God-given. I have a lot of natural gray in my hair. I don't cover it. I really, really like it. So, but if I were to cover my gray hair, I would do it with Illumina. And that brings me to, because it's so natural looking. And that brings me to my next point is that, I find people get really sort of nervous around this idea of gray coverage because I think we're conditioned as colorists, especially like I'm coming up on 40. I don't know how old some of the rest of you are, but I was really taught as a young colorist that when somebody has gray hair, you cover it. You put color on it and you cover it and it's gone. And they come back every 4 weeks to get it colored. Now, make no mistake, guys. If you guys have a client sitting in your chair who says to you, I want my gray covered. I never want to see it. I'm going to be back every 4 weeks to cover it, like to have you touch it up. Take their money. Totally fine. Have them come in every 4 weeks and cover up their gray. Make sure you manage their expectations, that they understand what the maintenance of something like that is going to look like. Okay, fine. I'm not against that, right? But if you have clients that are coming in saying, I want my gray covered, but I really don't like, and I hear this a lot, guys, I really don't like that demarcation. That clients don't use the word demarcation, but they don't like the line that grows in, or, they don't like the maintenance level it takes to cover gray in an opaque, like the wall behind me, in an opaque way, right? They're not going to use those words. But essentially that's what they're telling you when they say, I don't like this line and I can't really be in here every 4 weeks anymore. Like it's not really an option for me. I'm sure you guys have heard this. Then it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to, stop covering their gray. For you guys, from a fiscal perspective, that's not even a good thing we want to be doing. We want to help these clients have things that are good for their circumstances, but maybe will still allow us to make some money, right? So when you have those clients that maybe have been coloring their hair with an opaque permanent like Opalescence Perfect, and maybe they want to transition away from every 4 week appointments, Illumina is a great transitional sort of option for them because being permanent, it still will cover gray up to 100%. Now, I want you guys to know this detail. And this is why I will encourage you guys after this live to head down to Modern Beauty Supplies and pick up maybe a couple of tubes of Opalescence Perfect and a couple of tubes of Illumina and do some comparison, because seeing is really believing in this. But I think it's important to note that while both Opalescence Perfect and Illumina will cover gray up to 100%, Opalescence Perfect will do it in an opaque way. Like the wall, no light passes through, every strand of hair on the head the same color, right? Illumina will do it in a translucent way, respecting the natural sort of highs and lows and the natural dimension of the hair. Illumina will create a finish that is more natural looking, more respectful of the natural pigmentation of the hair, more naturally light reflective, and closer to virgin looking than anything else on the market. Okay. So I hope that that's clear about Illumina versus the first part of Illumina versus Opalescence Perfect, okay? But that gray coverage piece, guys, is one of the biggest reasons why I love Illumina, because of that natural looking finish. I know with my own clients with gray coverage, again, I was conditioned to believe that as soon as somebody starts talking about their gray, you cover it up. Now, we have so many other options than we did before. Years and years and years ago, it was just, you cover their gray with your Opalescence Perfect and you're done. It wasn't even called Opalescence Perfect then. But now, if somebody wants their gray covered, we can say to them, do you want it covered? I mean, maybe we wouldn't use hairdresser terms, but do we want it covered opaquely? Do we want it covered up to 100%? We're going to use Opalescence Perfect for that. But if this client is telling us that, things about their lifestyle that maybe don't align with that maintenance schedule, maybe a translucent coverage is a little bit more appropriate for them, right? We're talking about Illumina today, but we also have options in Color Touch where we can cover gray up to 50% or 70%. If you guys want to know about those, head over to our app or please DM me. I'm happy to share the info that I have, okay? But I don't want you guys to get stuck on this old school idea with gray coverage that we need to always just get rid of it. Right? It's not really the way that I work as a colorist anymore. I don't judge you. You do you. You know what's best for your clients, right? But remember that you're the expert. So just because somebody says gray coverage doesn't mean it necessarily has to be an opaque, traditional coverage. Okay. So that's the first big difference with Illumina and Colliston Perfect. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about Illumina today, my favorite thing we make. So the second big difference between Illumina and Colliston Perfect, guys, both being permanent colors, like I said before, is that Colliston Perfect is built on a brown gold, we call it a chassis or a base, right? So the base or the fundamental sort of materials that the color works with is brown gold. Now, the reasoning for this, I could launch into a long-winded situation about this, but I will try to keep it compact. But the biggest reason why colors get built on a warm base or chassis is because when we're trying to use a permanent color to cover gray, we need to have a well-rounded color profile in that mixture in order to create a target shade. So imagine if you had a dish of white paint in front of you and I asked you to make it brown. If you just took brown paint and put it in and mixed it up, you're going to have like a weird beige or something like that, something that a hairdresser would call hollow or muddy even is a word we sort of toss around sometimes. But if you put some brown and some gold in there and made that white paint sort of a browny, goldy, beigey sort of color and then loaded it down with more brown paint, you're going to end up with a more well-rounded color profile. Now, I admit that mixing and formulating hair color is very different than mixing paint. Fine, because paint is tangible. We can touch it and feel it. There's factors at play when we're formulating color that we can't touch and feel and see. We just have to trust her there, underlying pigment, right? But that's essentially why a lot of permanent colors are built on a warmer base, because we need warmth to cover gray, essentially is the meat and potatoes of it, okay? Now, Illumina, again, by contrast, to contrast it to Colliston Perfect, Illumina is built on a violet rosé base. Okay, I'll say that again. Illumina is built on a violet rosé base, okay? Now, before somebody says it in the comments, I know I just said we need warmth to cover gray, and we need to have a well-rounded profile, and I also said that Illumina will cover gray up to 100%. All of those things are true, okay? If you think about violet, violet's a secondary color that is part red, which is a warm color. Rosé is a fancy word for pink, or maybe a dusty pink, which is a light red, which is also a warm color, right? So I don't want you guys to get to thinking like, oh, you just contradicted yourself, because I see where you're coming from, but like not really. But where this comes into play, this violet rosé base, guys, with the Illumina, is really this idea of, like I said before, about how natural looking and close to virgin looking Illumina leaves the hair. Because it has a cooler base, because it's built on a cooler base, it allows it to have that sort of respectful, natural high and low, translucent gray coverage or sheer gray coverage. Still colored, the hair, the unpigmented hair is still colored. It's just natural high and low. It's covered a little bit differently than the opaqueness or opacity we would see with permanent color. Okay, so violet rosé base will allow Illumina to look very, very natural looking. It's a very easy to use color in that way. I'm obsessed with using Illumina shades for my root shadows and my root taps and things. I just did a mannequin yesterday. That's not prepped, otherwise I would show it to you. It's right there. I literally can't show you on camera right now. But I love this for my root shadows and my root taps and my blends and stuff, because I don't sit back and go, oh my God, is it going to be too warm? Is this going to work out? What is it going to do? Illumina is a very easygoing color that way. Now, if used properly, right? If we are doing things that are maybe not, that we're not supposed to, or that are irresponsible, of course, things can happen. But all told, guys, those are the reasons why I love Illumina so much. Okay, so for those of you that are just joining us today, I'm Chelsea Mann. We're talking about Illumina color today. It's my favorite thing that Wella makes. It's like pretty close with Blonde Orplex. I super love Blonde Orplex. But today we're talking about Illumina, and we just finished talking about the how Illumina is a permanent color and why it's different than Colliston Perfect, okay? So let's get on to the good stuff, guys. I hope that that's more clear for you guys. And again, if you have questions, please throw them into the question cards, toss them up into the comments. I'm happy to answer them, okay? So let's look at some swatches, and then I'm gonna do some demo for you guys and give you guys a few tips and tricks, okay? So for swatches, what's kind of cool, I know that some of you have I think a lot of you probably have this beautiful Wella Mega Swatch book. It's so awesome. I know when I first, this is a small thing, guys, but when I first came on as an educator, all of ours, many years ago, all of our swatches are different things, were in different books, and I had to carry, I know for me, I had to carry around, I think, half a dozen different swatch books that really, you know, gave the arm a good workout. But I know for you guys in the salons, we were having problems figuring out where to put them and where can we get them out of the way. So now everything's in our Mega Swatch book. So before I came on, I took my Illumina swatches out just so I didn't have to fight with it. So this is what the Illumina swatches look like. When they're in the book, they're lined up sort of like this with the purple on top to match the Illumina packaging, okay? So look for these in your Mega Swatch book. And if you guys don't have a Mega Swatch book, you can head over to our app. There's tons of information. I'll talk about the app in a little bit. There's tons of information on the app about Illumina, or you can DM me. I'm happy to send you guys whatever you need, okay? So this is what your swatches look like. Again, we've got the purple at the top to match the packaging. And I know my ring light's going to skew this a little bit, but you guys can see how, like, compared to a permanent color, I'll pull out a permanent swatch here. Compared to a permanent color and something that's built on that brown gold base, how believable and sort of just more natural looking those Illumina shades really are. So I'll give you guys an example here. This is my favorite one to use in classes, okay? 7-stroke 4-3. So 7-stroke 4-3 is a level 7 dominant pigment red, secondary pigment gold, which makes it a sort of a pretty pigmented level 7 copper. Okay, it's a really beautiful shade, but it's a red copper, not a gold copper. Okay, so in Opalescence Perfect, that shade is right here. I don't know how much you guys can see of that. It's right there, 7-stroke 4-3. Okay, in Illumina, the same shade marked exactly the same way is right there. I'm gonna stand up here. It's right there. Okay, so I know it's hard to see on here. Oh, there, if I turn it like that, it's easier. This is, where am I here? That's the shade in Illumina, and that's the shade in Opalescence Perfect. They're marked exactly the same, 743. But this one, this Opalescence Perfect one, is a lot more sort of jewel toned and like more pigmented. And it's built on that brown gold base, whereas this one is built on the violet base and inherently is a lot more natural looking, okay? So that's side by side, and this is why I encourage you guys to never take my word for it. And I know that sounds crazy. I encourage you guys not to take my word for it. I encourage you to go down to Modern Beauty Supply, grab a tube of 743 Opalescence Perfect and a tube of 743 in Illumina and do your own comparison. Or pick a different shade, totally fine. I believe that the best learning happens when you guys do your own experimenting. I've had many late nights down here with swatches, on the floor and, in hotel rooms and stuff, experimenting because I wanted to see it with my own eyes, okay? So I certainly encourage you guys to do that, okay? So your swatches look like this. Now, in Illumina, what's cool too is we have some warm shades in Illumina. We have some cool shades in Illumina, or cool shades in Illumina and some neutral shades in Illumina. Now, I know when we say warm, when it comes to Illumina, it sounds oxymoronic, right? We still make warm shades in Illumina, even though it has a cool base. But like I just showed you with the 743, it gives it that more believable, natural looking finish. And again, guys, I'm not bashing people that like to have that more pigmented look. That's okay. If that's your jam, you go for it. I don't judge anybody. You do what you do. But those clients that want to have that more trendy, sort of modern, brushed or natural look, Illumina is a really great choice for them. Little tip and trick, even though I'm not at that section of my presentation yet, just because we're talking about 743, if you guys are trying to create natural looking reds, which most experienced colorists will tell you, I know a lot of young hairstylists and a lot of young colorists really struggle a lot with blondes, and that's like the bane of their existence. But once you get a few years under your belt, you'll see the hardest things that you'll do is natural looking reds, because a lot of times colors end up looking very jewel toned, or they're too, like, red's very volatile, right? It's when you're trying to create a custom shade, it's either too pink or it's too orange or it's too red or it's too violet. Like, there's a very sort of sweet spot with reds where you find it and you write it down and you stick with it and you never change it, right? I have found my sweet spot with reds, guys, and it's with Illumina. We make lots of warm shades with Illumina, and I'll still, maybe if I'm doing a highlight in a red and I want it to look natural, which is another tip for helping reds look natural, is give them dimension. I will always throw some Illumina in because it's just such an easy way to have the red look natural because it has that natural violet, that violet rosé base. Okay, so warm shades. There you go. Okay, cool shades. I'll give you guys so inherently, guys, as much as I talk about, you know, natural reds and yay and fun stuff, I love flat, ashy, cool hair. I'm from Ontario. We like our ashy hair. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. It is what it is, right? So I love ashy hair, right? So that's another reason why I love Illumina. We make so many beautiful ashy, flat base colors that are still naturally light reflective, but they're just also so matte and just, ooh, they put hair on your chest. They're so, you know, ashy and beautiful. I dig it. So a few of my favorites is right down at the bottom there. This guy, 502. This is 581. Yep, dig it. And my personal favorite, probably my favorite shade in this portfolio is this guy right here, 6-stroke 16. Okay, so 6-stroke 16 is a level 6 dominant ash, secondary violet. And it's really, really great. I use it as a toner sometimes, which before anybody freaks out on me in the comments, I know it's a level 6. I don't leave it on long enough that it can deposit down to a 6. I just leave it on long enough that it gets like nice and smoky. And then I take it down. So a little bit of an Illumina hack there for you. Okay. So also in Illumina, guys, I don't know if this is like a year and a half or 2 years ago. Anyways, we released a few new shades in Illumina that again were, you know, sort of game changers. They're called Opalescence. Okay. So Opalescence are beautiful shades in Illumina that have all of the things we talked about. They have that violet rosé base. They have the translucent or sheer sort of finish. They respect the natural highs and lows of the hair. They look really, really beautiful. But they look warm in some lights and cool in other lights. And they're very, very dynamic in the way that they look on the hair. You can also add them to other shades as intensifiers or special mix-ins, things like that. And they look like this. Okay. So we've got Copper Peach, Titanium Rose, Platinum Lily, Chrome Olive, which this one's my favorite for obvious reasons, and Silver Mauve. Okay. This one I love because again, I really, really love ashy sort of matte hair. I call this one Dirty Money. So I want you guys to, you know, give Illumina a little bit of your space in your brain, give it a little bit of a thought. Cause really guys, I've been doing color for 20 plus years, and I've tried everything. I work for Wella. I've always come home to Wella. I'm a big fan. But I've tried everything. It doesn't mean that I don't try other stuff. I've tried everything. Illumina is absolutely hands down my favorite. Okay. So I want to show you guys a couple of things with Illumina, give you guys some tips and tricks. So first of all, I apologize to you guys because I don't have swatches for these yet. I know everybody's excited to see these. I don't have swatches for them yet. They haven't sent them to me yet, so stay tuned. But we do have 4 new shades in Illumina, okay? The 4 new shades are our 8-stroke 9-3. Okay, so 8-stroke 9-3 is a level 8. Dominant is cendré, but it's like a violet gray. Secondary 3, which is gold. Okay, I call these hybrid shades. So they're part warm, part cool, and I dig it. I did one of these as a toner on a mannequin yesterday, and they're gorge. Love it. We also have our 9-stroke 19, so level 9 dominant ash, secondary cendré, which again is violet gray. We have one of our most popular colors from our Color Touch portfolio. We now have in Illumina's 10-stroke 8-1. Okay, so this is a level 10 dominant blue. Or we call it pearl, but 8 is blue. Secondary 1, which is ash. Okay. And then this one, guys, is the one that everybody's been waiting for. We saw this come out in the UK and everybody's been waiting with bated breath for this one. 9-stroke 5-9, level 9, dominant red violet, which is 5, secondary cendré, which is violet gray. And I know that that's a mouthful, guys. Essentially, it's a level 9 sort of dusty, viley gray pink. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You guys aren't going to hear me say anything bad about anything today because when they told me, oh, we want you to present Illumina, I was like, well, you don't have to tell me twice. It's totally fine. So those are the new shades that are coming out in Illumina. I believe Modern Beauty Supplies has them right now. So you guys can head down there and grab those. Just so I said it, guys, Illumina, because it's permanent, has a 1-to-1 mixing ratio with our Opalescence developer. Okay, so it's this guy. You, just to throw a wrench into the mix, you can also mix Illumina with our Color Touch developer. Okay, so when I start to say that, when I start to talk about Illumina that way, I feel like people get confused. I feel like they're with me on the journey through, why is Illumina different and why do we love Illumina and whatever. And then when I sort of confuse people with you can mix it with the two different developers. So here's the meat and potatoes, guys. With Illumina, when you're mixing it with your Color Perfect developer, you're using it as a traditional permanent color. Okay, so you're using it as your up to 100% sheer gray coverage. You're using it as your base color. You're using it in whatever ways we would normally be using a permanent color, right? You're mixing it at a 1-to-1 mixing ratio. All good, right? But let's say you wanted to use Illumina as a toner, right? Now, I want to be clear here, guys, okay? Mixing a permanent color, mixing an oxidative color with a low volume developer does not turn it into a Demi. Okay? I will skip the science behind it because I'm going to run out of time. But I want you guys to remember the pigment content and the content of the tube of hair color does not change based on the developer that you mix it with, right? So can you use a low volume developer to ask a permanent color to behave more like a Demi? Sure. But we can't ask a monkey to be a giraffe, right? The pigment content in the tube will still remain the same. And the lift, guys, is also in the tube. That will still remain, right? So again, we're not asking a monkey to be a giraffe. We're just asking the monkey may be able to make the noise a giraffe makes, but it'll never grow the long neck. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, so when I say this, guys, I'm not telling you that we're using a permanent color with a Demi developer and turning a permanent into a Demi. It does not work that way, period. Okay, but we are going to use our Color Touch developer to ask our Illumina color, our permanent color, to be a little bit more like a Demi, but it's still a permanent, okay? So it still has the ability to lift. It still has all of those things, right? We're just going to give it a little bit of an opportunity to act more like a toner, okay? So if you're going to do that with your Illumina, which is something I do all the time, guys, we're going to mix it 1 part Illumina color to 2 parts Color Touch developer, and we can use it like a toner. Now, for those of you that have done this and you're saying, yeah, but Chelsea, I tried that and it still bumped my base a little bit. Totally got you, totally feel you. And that's my monkey and giraffe conversation, right? That even if you mix it with a low volume developer, the lift is in the tube, right? You could mix that color with water and it still would have the opportunity to lift from a scientific perspective, right? The lift and the pigment is in the tube. The developer is the oxygenator, the catalyst, if you will, right? So best opportunity for you guys to be able to use Illumina as a toner and minimize the lift. And I did on purpose to say the word minimize, not eliminate. Minimize the lift on it is to do what we call a glossing service. Okay. So we can do regular toners. Totally fine. A glossing service, guys, the way that we talk about it, we use the word gloss because it'll be nice and shiny. It'll help the hair look healthy. It'll be all of those things. But a glossing service will also give your color the opportunity to develop and deposit, but dilute its ability to lift, essentially. Okay? Excuse me. So when we're doing a glossing service, guys, I want you guys to... maybe you guys can head over to the app to look at this as well. But I'll say this a couple of times, so if you're trying to write this down, it's not so fast. The formula for our Wella Professionals glossing service is 1 to 1 to 1. Okay? So it's 1 part color, 1 part Illumina color. You guys can also do this with our Color Perfect portfolio. Okay? 1 part Illumina color, 1 part developer, and 1 part of our post color treatment, our post service. Okay? Again, 1 to 1 to 1, 1 part color, 1 part developer, 1 part post color treatment. Okay. Now, if you haven't seen post-color treatment before, this is what it looks like. Every Wella salon has this on the back bar. This is our post-color treatment. This is your last step. It helps to normalize the pH. It helps to close the cuticle down. It helps to return the hair to its most sort of normal chemical state that it can be after its coloring service. So this is really the step that helps to sort of dilute that lift down. Now, again, guys, I'm saying dilute and help on purpose because we're not asking a monkey to be a giraffe. We're just asking it to make the noise. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, glossing services 1-to-1-to-1, they're a really great thing that we do with Illumina. Okay, so I don't see any questions in the comments yet, so that's good. I just want to show you guys a little something before I sign off. Okay, so this is a mannequin. This is my buddy here. Let's see maybe what I can pull her in. Chair. Haha, there she is. Okay, so this is my mannequin here. Okay, if you guys, anybody who's seen my lives before saw this mannequin on my, I don't know if it was my color correction live. Yep, totally. You'll find it on the Instagram stories. But she has a beautiful sort of blonde front here. And I just wanted to demonstrate that translucent, opaque situation I was talking about before. Okay, so if you're just joining us, the difference, one of the biggest things that I love about Illumina is that it has that, oh, my fringe is being crazy. It has that that translucent or that sheer sort of finish where it's you're not going to be using it to cover gray or to color hair in an opaque sort of every strand of hair on the head the same color way. You're going to be using it to create a color that respects the natural dimension of the hair and preserves the natural highs and lows of the hair and creates a really nice finish, okay? So if I was using Colliston Perfect, I have a couple pieces of fabric here, guys. If I was using Colliston Perfect, okay, to cover up this, and yes, if we were doing this properly, guys, we would have to pre-pigment it and blah, blah, blah. But let's say we were coloring this black and I was using an opaque color, right? Opaque, you guys can't see my hand through this fabric, right? This is the hood of my sweater, just FYI. You can't see my hand through it, right? This is opaque, none of the light passes through. If I put this on the hair, it would color the hair opaquely, right? But if I had a translucent piece of fabric, you guys can see my hand through this fabric, right? If I put this over the hair, right, it creates that sort of sheer look over the hair. I understand that this is different than what the hair color will actually look like, but it creates sort of a sheer finish over the hair where you can still see her sort of through it. You can still see her hair sort of through it. Whereas something opaque like this, it's just, she's just gone, right? I hope that makes sense. I hope that's a good sort of comparison for you guys for, you know, opaque versus translucent. Because I think it's a really great feature of Illumina Color that it's able to do that. Okay. So yeah, that's everything I have for you guys today. I hope that after you guys are done today and everybody that sort of joined us today, again, I would love for you guys to not take anything that I say without trying it out yourself, right? Don't take my word for it, guys. Head on down to Modern Beauty Supplies, to your local Modern Beauty. And grab a couple of tubes of Colliston Perfect, find the corresponding shade, or ask somebody, the staff at the Modern Beauty Supply stores. I don't know if you know this or not. They're spectacular. They're knowledgeable people. They're not going to formulate for you guys. That's your job. But they're spectacular people that will help you guys, right? So if you're confused or you don't know what you're looking for, you know, go ahead and ask somebody that works at the store. They're really, really amazing. Grab a shade in Illumina and find the corresponding shade in Colliston Perfect. Go home. You know, I know in Alberta right now, guys, our salons are shut down and it's a conversation for another time. But if you have the time to do this, now's your moment. Head home and do some swatching and see it for yourself. See that really beautiful Illumina finish and sort of those differences in where you may use Illumina versus where you would have used it in Colliston Perfect. Okay. So again, thank you to Modern Beauty Supplies for having me and for welcoming Wella into your homes. Thank you guys so much all for joining me. Again, my name is Chelsea Mann. I'm a field education trainer for Wella Professional and Master Color Expert. You guys can find me at chelsea.wella. You guys can also follow us at Wella Canada West. We do a lot of featuring of Wella artists and, you know, a lot of inspiration work. So you guys, and we do a lot of lives from there as well. So you guys can follow us on there. And feel free, guys, if you guys have any questions, you guys can slide into my DMs anytime. I welcome that, okay? So yeah, thank you to Modern Beauty Supplies for having us. I hope you guys stay safe and healthy, wash your hands. And please remember, guys, if you guys learned anything today, you're not the owners of your knowledge, you're only the caretakers of it. And if it was freely given, the anticipation is that you will pay it forward. So please go and tell your teams everything that you learned, share that knowledge. It really is a worthwhile endeavor. Thank you so much, guys, and stay safe.